G'day guys and gal, love 'em or hate 'em, the Primarchs are the main focal point of which the setting of 40k spins. They bend destiny and fate, do some pretty cool stuff, and for the most part are very fun to read about. However, since the Loyalists only have 2 Primarchs confirmed to be alive in the current setting, both of which have their every move covered and discussed like they're in some sort of demigod version of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I thought it'd be cool to see what the Traitor Primarchs are currently doing. After all, Fulgrim has just returned to the setting, with all the other Demon Primarchs also being in play with official new models, bar Lorgar and Perturabo. However, they have still been working in the background. So let's check in to see what the Emperor's naughtiest sons have been up to. Before we get started, this is the last weekend that the Big EV2 is available. Now you know the pitch, you know the features, you know the scales, and you know that the 1/6 scale and the 1/12 scale, and by the time this video goes live, probably the pre-painted editions are all sold out. So I don't need to go over that again. What I will however say is this model is seriously one of the most detailed, stunning, and unique models there is. Everything from it to the details, the pose, the variants, and even the new ultra resin used in its creation is unbeatable. The model is so good that even shit paint jobs on it actually still look decent. So if you aren't a good painter or even a painter at all, then it's still a solid idea to grab it and hold on to it for now. As an extra incentive, we're running a $21,500 US Major Minis painting competition for the rest of the year. Categories ranging from best paint job to most creative paint job to best kit bashes, best diorama. The Big E even has its own category. So another strat if you aren't a good painter might be picking one up, getting it commission painted and then entering it into the competition. And don't forget, we're still running the Big EV2 Mount Ararat diorama giveaway. You could take this diorama home for as little as $10, featuring Custodes, Thunder Warriors, and a pro-painted Big EV2. Follow the link below for everything I just mentioned. But yeah guys, this is it, don't let the Emperor down. Today we'll go over what each Traitor Primarch is currently up to in the setting, detailing their last known action and whereabouts. Let's get into it. Let's start with Fulgrim to get all the gross shit out of the way first. Post-Heresy, Fulgrim was keen to literally just goon himself off for all of eternity. No, that isn't even a joke. However, he is also the latest Primarch to return to the setting and get a new model, which means theoretically he gets a bunch of dope and new lore telling us all about what he's up to. Right? Well, he did get an accompanying book, Fulgrim the Perfect Son, but it was a bit of a weak source book. It didn't cover much about what he'd been up to, his deep inner thoughts, or what his overall plan was. Basically, it just said that Fulgrim was a massive asshole and extremely up himself, which we already knew. It then more or less centered on Fulgrim wanting his Emperor's children to prove themselves to him by attacking a Black Templar-held world. Being a bit dramatic, Fulgrim wanted to have one of his sons, Fulgrim's champion, take on the Emperor's champion on the world to prove that he was better than the Emperor. Yeah, look, all that warp gooning hasn't made him any less delusional. Fulgrim literally sat back and watched, telling both sides he wasn't intervening, and got pretty humiliated when the Emperor's champion absolutely whooped the ass of Fulgrim's champion. Now this next part is spoilers for the book. I mean, every fucking lore video is spoilers, but since the book is new, I thought I'd mention. Okay, so the book ends with Fulgrim and his champion attacking the Black Templars again, but this time he lets his sons gang up on the Emperor's champion. Despite this, the legendary warrior slices through their ranks like Sigismund reborn, taking many wounds and exhausting himself before he lunges at Fulgrim, a trail of dead Emperor's children in his path, as he is desperate to wound the Traitor Primarch. However, Fulgrim's champion shanks him in the back and kills the Emperor's champion instead. Fulgrim is then like, ha, see, I'm better, my champion won. So honestly, yeah, it's just a bit embarrassing for Fulgrim overall. Fulgrim has been more or less just sort of doing this sort of shit since Gilliman returned, a return Fulgrim took personal offense to since he was the one that benched G-Man for 10,000 years. Fulgrim has mostly just been running around, trying to flex on everyone and doing random shit. It doesn't seem like he yet has a cohesive goal or objective. Next is Perturabo. Perty is one of the last remaining Traitor Primarchs who hasn't gotten a new model yet. However, he's still very active in the setting, but more so in a supporting role. Chaos warlords like Abaddon would petition Perturabo for his aid, and if Perty deemed them worthy, he would provide them machines of war, obscene tech viruses, and Iron Warriors. With the opening of the Great Rift, Perty sent forth the Iron Warriors in their thousands, targeting the most heavily defended Imperial worlds as a personal challenge to himself. However, he himself basically never took the field in person. He was literally playing Total War Warhammer 40k. Recently, he clashed with Mortarion and the Death Guard in the War of Rust and Ruin. Although he held the initial advantage, Morty's diseases and plagues ravaged the Iron Warriors and their machines, forcing them to retreat in failure. The last we've seen of Perturabo in the current setting is him working with Vashtor the Archifane on various fucked up projects, which makes sense, the two seem to have a lot in common. Perty also gave Vashtor some Iron Warriors to use on his assault on the Dark Angels. I honestly think Perturabo will be the next Traitor Primarch to return to the setting. He's been very active despite no model, and he is also a bit of a fan favorite character in the setting. Would be like printing money, unless I get there first. Now for Anger on the Angry Boy. we have seen a fair bit of Angron in the current setting. He was one of the main antagonists of the Arcs of Omen campaign and was quite literally the final boss of it. He also has a pretty nifty new ability, that being whenever he is banished, instead of it taking years for him to reform, Khorne just brings him back after a couple months. Hence Angron will charge in, wreak absolute havoc, be defeated at great cost, then just rinse and repeat. It's very hard to deal with. One of the last times we see him, he fought the newly returned Lion and had his brains bashed out with the Emperor's shield, once again being banished. But as per his new ability, he quickly reformed and assaulted Armageddon, salty about losing the war there many years prior. He would be banished twice during this engagement, called the Season of Blood, both times by the Grey Knights at huge cost. Big boy just won't stay down. The setting has made it clear that out of the ruinous powers, Khorne is currently ascendant and is by far the most powerful of the Chaos Gods. Nurgle is currently licking his wounds after the Empress set his stinky ass on fire, Slaanesh is a little bitch, and Tzeentch is doing whatever the fuck he is doing. So with Khorne being so powerful, he's able to make Angron powerful via his extremely rapid and extremely annoying unbanishments. Although I feel like this will end up making Angron just another bigger, scarier Avatar of Cain type of character. Now for Morty. The Death Guard were the poster boys of chaos for some time. Morty and his men got new models before the other traitor legions and kicked off the Plague Wars, a full-on invasion of Ultramar which forced Gilliman to leave the Indominus Crusade and return home to face his brother. Now Nurgle was originally pretty happy about the Plague Wars, however the Death Guard were overextended and the other Chaos factions started attacking Nurgle's domain, both in real space and in the warp. Nurgle ordered Mortarion to return home to defend the Grandfather's realm, but Morty refused and was hell-bent on killing Gilliman. It was a gamble. If Morty killed G-Man, he would more or less doom the Imperium and be exalted. If he failed, he would have wasted a huge force of Death Guard and allowed Nurgle's realm and worlds to be undefended. Kugath created the Godblight for Mortarion, a poison so powerful it could override a Primarch's physiology and kill them. Mortarion then battled Gilliman, and Gilliman once again showed us why he is the logistical Primarch and not the duelist Primarch, as he got his ass whooped and the Godblight injected into him. However, gods don't play fair in 40k. The Emperor possessed Gilliman, healed him, and then set Nurgle's garden on fire. So Mortarion ignoring Nurgle's command resulted in Nurgle's realm getting set ablaze, Nurgle himself being burnt, and also Nurgle losing some planets in real space to other Chaos factions. Not to mention a lot of dead Death Guard, a huge L. Mortarion was dragged into Nurgle's garden kicking and screaming before being put in a cummy moth jar. However, Morty's timeout was not to last, as he was released to be allowed to fight and actually defeat Perturabo during the War of Rust and Ruin. However, I want to note that the time frame on that one is a little bit sketchy. I don't know for sure if the War of Rust and Ruin happened before or after the Plague Wars, but I feel like it could have actually happened before, which means Mortarion is probably still trapped in his cummy moth jar. Now time for the super nerd. Magnus often gets his ass absolutely clapped whenever he tries to be too bold and brave. When he returned to the setting, he went absolutely fucking ham, attacking Fenris, then attacking the newly revived Gilliman, both of these ending in failure with him being banished. Even when Magnus decided to take a bit of a break from being on the assault, he still cops it. He recently returned to the dead Prospero and begun reviving it, however was attacked by the Space Wolves who fucked shit up and foiled his plans. When he then tried to do another ritual to turn Prospero and its surrounding space into a realm of Tzeentch, he was again foiled by a large Grey Knight and Dark Angel assault. Then just as Magnus had thought everyone had finally fucked off, Castiel and Crow returned to Prospero to once again attack him and attempt to rescue the Grey Knights and Dark Angels left behind. The dude just can't catch a break. It seems at this point Magnus just wants to attract a bunch of psychos to him and recreate the paradise of Prospero. I almost feel bad for the dude, just let him do his thing, goddamn. Lorgar is a bit of an interesting one. After scary Shadowbird Demon Corvus clapped his ass in the Eye of Terror, Lorgar has been more or less meditating / hiding in his tower for 10,000 years, letting the Wordbearers get run by Erebus and Corferon. However, it is said that Lorgar has returned to the setting and is leading a large host of Wordbearers, conquering worlds and converting them to chaos. That's the thing about Imperium Nihilus and the scale of the Imperium. If the Imperium is 1 million worlds and 500,000 are stuck on the dark side of the galaxy, then Lorgar could have conquered 1,000 of them off screen and he only would have impacted like 0.1% of the Imperium. I see him as being in a similar position to Fulgrim and Perturabo, present but not yet going for the big narrative bits, like taking on a loyalist Primarch or important loyalist world or even a fan favorite chapter. But that just means there is plenty of story to draw from when eventually he does return. But yeah, out of all the Traitor Primarchs, Lorgar is one we almost have the least about. I say almost because now we're talking about Alpharis Omegon. Fuck me dead, time to activate my super autism brain. As far as the lore is concerned, Alpharis is dead, like dead. I know some people are like, oh, but in his new book he swaps places with Omegon, so it's actually Omegon that is dead. Look, the writer who wrote Alpharis' death confirmed it was Alpharius. Doesn't get more concrete than that. The lore is actually better and makes more sense if it is Alpharius, since as soon as Omegon got control of the Legion, he instantly pulled them out of the heresy, which makes sense since Omegon was a lot more of a loyalist than Alpharius. So the question is, what is Omegon up to? Well, Well, we have no idea, since many in the Alpha Legion have claimed the title of Alpharis and then been killed. All of Omegan's appearances appear to be rumors and misdirections, and we recently found out that the Alpha Legion is incredibly divided, with some being loyalist, others being traitor, and the rest being somewhere in between, none of whom actually know where Omegan is. It does feel like there is a puppet master in the shadows, subtly nudging and guiding the Alpha Legion towards his enigmatic goals, most of which still appear to be loyalist adjacent. But yeah, out of all the Traitor Primarchs, if you can call them that, the current activities of Omegan are by far the least known. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the big EV2. This is the last weekend and then he is gonzos. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more traitorous content. Join us for more memes that I'll see you in the next one. Peace.